It's time to kick gum and shoot ass.
Helicopter, helicopter!
That do it.
Stop! Don't kill me!
Who the hell is Steve Jobs? Now you're gonna die wearing that stupid little hat. How does it feel?
Who hired this guy? What the fuck?
None of you seem to understand. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me.
Got him!
All aboard who's coming aboard!
I see thee, little tarnished. Cower in fear. The hands of the fell omen.
Shut up!
Hello, welcome. I'm Uncle Major, your favorite uncle. In this video I'm going to show a build I came up with that uses fire and lightning. You'll know when sometimes inspiration for certain things comes from something you least expected. It is this case for this build because the idea came when I remembered that Athena, one of the player characters in Borderlands The Prequel, has a skill called Maelstrom that gives her ability to inflict both fire and electric damage. This is why part of this build name has Maelstrom. And I chose the rogue word because I thought it fits the worn out visual theme of this build. Did you know that the Portuguese language does not have the word rogue? Yeah, we don't have a word equivalent for that. Sometimes it's translated as rebel or pirate, or even criminal, which is not what it actually means. We also don't have a word for fist. Anyways, when I was playtesting this build, I remember there is an infusion Dark Souls 3 called Chaos that kinda does fire and lightning damage, but that is not where I got the idea for this build, just to let you know. I do like to say that I tried to record the footage for this video on new game, but things didn't work as I expected them to. When I have a build idea, first I pick up a build that I have backup that have all the items, and I play a little bit with possible items that can be used. And with that in mind, I start a new game with a fresh new character and all, and playtest through the entire game. That is one of the reasons why it takes a while for me to post a new build video. Anyway, while playing test this build, I came up with some problems, like things working differently than I expected, or not setting on a visual theme permanently. And you can see that on the video that I'm showing right now on the info card on the top right. I managed to record almost all bosses fighting during my new game run. I think I only forgot to record 8 or 9 of these fights, but those are some really dumb fights like Tibia Mariners. So if you just like a bunch of boss fights video, that might be something for you. In that video you can see the armor and weapons were all over the place until I set up the ones that I will be showing on this video. And that's why I playtest my builds from the beginning, to see what it works or not, in which stage of the game, and have a feeling for it to see if it can be easily used by new players. So let's check the traits, pros and cons of this build. The main idea of this build is dealing both fire and lightning damage, preferably both at the same time. That means that power stance is needed to do so, since you cannot infuse a weapon with both types of damage at the same time, nor a magical spell exists in the game with such property. And if you don't know what power stance means in Elden Ring, that is when you equip 2 weapons of the same class, one on each hand. For the looks of this character, like I said before, I have chosen a worn out theme, so armors and weapons should follow this trait. Fire and light damage also apply to incantations that can be used. Even though there is no incantation that deals both type damage, I prefer to add the ones that deals this type of damage to this build so it can have more variety and especially some range attacks options. Therefore, because of the fire and light dependence, the main attribute stats of this build will be strength and faith. And if you wonder why not dexterity instead of strength, since dex is the attribute that boosts lighting affinities, that is because of 2 reasons. First, the weapons I've chosen for this build that are strength dependent, and second, there is a catch on how to apply fire and lighting on both hands. I will talk about that in apply element damage chapter. Now about the pros. First, I would like to say that this is a strong build throughout the entire game. Not OP broken, but quite effective. Fire plus lightning combo works wonderfully, because it has fire to deal bonus damage against the flashy unarmored enemies, and lightning to deal the ones that wear armor. This is optional, but I'll also select a bunch of weapons that deal all 4 types of physical damage to maximize damage output. If you know if your enemy has certain weakness to one of these, you can be used to your advantage. And because of the fire lightning damage combo, plus be able to switch to a weapon that have the physical type bonus against the enemies in a given area, makes this build with almost no resistance from enemies. Now, about it being friendly to new players or not. I would say that if you have any experience with one of the Souls-like from Software, this build should be easy to understand. But if you're new, this might be a bit overwhelming at first, but I think even a fresh new player through this kind of games can use this build just fine. It is just that this build won't be the one that I would recommend for this kind of players. If you are one of those players and just wanna easy build, check out my Capra Demo build video. That one is super broken, super easy to use and get the items. Now to the cons of this build. Some weapons shown here are hard to farm, like really hard. They are on the lowest drop rate in the game. At least these are not the worst weapons to farm in Elden Ring. Because of the power stance nature of this build, and the weapons must have the ability to be infused, means that this build is extremely heavy on smithstone consumption. I really mean it. If you decide to go for the optional weapons, this shit gets crazy. I have some tips in the smithstones chapter to mitigate this, but those are not miracles either. If you decide to go for the optional stuff that I'll be showing in this video, you better like farm stuff. One of the talismans can only be acquired in New Game Plus, while some incantations only be available near the end of the game, and the main secret seal of this build is Attribute Hungry. More about that in their respective chapter of this video. Now I'm going to show the weapons I picked for this build. I would like to point out that any weapons that scale nicely with strength and can be infused with different Ashes of War can be used in this build. So if there's one that fits this criteria and is not on this list, it can be used on this build too. Just a reminder, you need 2 of each of these weapons because they need to be power stanced. The exceptions will be the axes and hammers that I will point out when talking about them. Because there are a lot of weapons, I will be pointing out both by telling you and also in the description of each one of them, which are the main weapons, the option ones, and the ones you should think about going after them only on New Game Plus. And I'm starting with the weapon I consider the main one of this build. When I got the idea of doing this build, I imagined using this weapon, and it works wonderfully on it. It is the Gross Massa. After power stancing this beauty, I became a new member of the Curved Sword Power Stance Club, and you probably should be too, nephew. The Gross Massa, which means Great Knife in German, and requires 14 points in strength and 12 in dexterity to be wielded, can be infused with Ashes of War and requires smithstones to be upgraded. The problem with this weapon is how to acquire it. It can only be farmed from skeletons that wield them, and the drop rate is abysmal of only 2%. Because when I was farming for it and it was taking too long, I searched on YouTube to see if anyone had a better farming spot, and they did. The problem is that all of them ignored the room right at the beginning of the Tomb Ward's catacombs that require a stone keyword to unlock it, and instead ran through the entire dungeon. I found out a much quicker method on how to farm the Gross Massa and made a video about it that you can see now on the top right of the screen or in the video description. It took me only 20 minutes to get both of them. It will be different for you, that's for sure. Maybe a bit slower or faster, but I guarantee you that this is the best method so far. Next weapon will be a bit controversial. I thought a lot about adding this to this video, because not only it's really weak, it is also do not fit very well with the worn out theme of this build. It is the war pick. This is an optional weapon and can be farmed as soon as you want to. Farming this was actually the first thing that I did when I started my playthrough. Well, as you can see up close, this weapon is actually quite pretty. The metal is a bit worn out, but overall it is a well preserved state. There's even some golden details on it. The reason I opted for this is because, despite the info panel says that it deals strike damage, it actually deals pierce damage. It is quite a unique hammer because of this type of damage it does. I really tried to understand what makes this weapon fall short, but I don't have a concrete answer for that. And I think, and even though what I'm about to say makes sense but I cannot prove it, the uniqueness of the war pick is what makes it weak. Why is that? Because compared to other small piercing weapons like thrusting swords, the war pick is quite slow. It has basically the same animation as the other hammers. While the thrusting swords have a lower damage, you can poke your adversaries much quicker than swinging the war pick. There is at least one good thing I can say about this weapon. It weighs almost nothing, at only 2.5 whatever the weight unit might be in this game. It requires 11 points in strength and 9 in dexterity to be wielded. Warpick can be infused with Ashes of War, and it uses Smith Stones to be upgraded. If you wanna try this out, this must be farmed unfortunately. Any of those soldiers you see wielding them can drop it, even those ghosts in Cardia Manor. The quickest way to doing so is by killing one Gothic soldier that wields it, that is located southwest of the Gate from Ruin site of Grace, here in Lingrave. Just remember that these are just Gothic soldiers, and not
Gothic soldier.
so you should be fine. What you're going to do is jump on torrent, go and boink the head of the Gothic soldier, check to see if it drops anything and go back to the site of Grace. The drop rate is the abysmal 2%, so that guy with a shield near the carriage should be wondering what the fuck is going on. For standard damage, 2 different weapons will be required on New Game, the Hand Axe and the Highland Axe. The reason for 2 different weapons is because they cannot be farmed and one of each can be acquired on New Game cycle. This axe is optional by the way, not much to say about it other than it's quite a versatile axe that works well in almost any kind of build, as long as it's properly prepared for a specific build of course. It requires 9 points in strength and 8 in dexterity. Can be fused and the upgrade path is, you guess it, through Smith Stones. It can be bought from a nomadic merchant located here in Lingrave. It costs 600 runes. The Highland Axe, on the other hand, is quite a unique axe because it has a passive ability that increases damage for roar skills by 10%, but that doesn't matter in this case of this build because it doesn't use any roar. The Highland Axe, as like the Hand Axe, is optional and can be acquired when you gain access to the Stormvale Castle. It requires 12 points in strength and 9 in dexterity. It can be infused with Ashes of War, and if you decide to use it, well, you need to go after some Smith Stones. The Highland Axe can be looted from a corpse inside the Stormvale Castle. It is in front of the giant Godfrey picture with a grafted sign patrolling the area. For strike damage, I show you the option to use the Mace and the Morning Star. It was a bit tricky to choose these weapons for early game because there are many options that fit this theme of the build. It is only there to fill the gap until a later weapon can replace both Mace and the Morning Star. It requires 12 points in strength and 9 in dexterity to be used. As expected, it can be infused and yep, upgraded with stones.
Come again.
Upgraded with Smith Stones.
Come again.
Upgradable with Smith Stones. At least it's easy to get it because it's sold by the Twin Maiden Husks at the Round Table Hold for 800 runes. The Morning Star is another hammer that deals strike damage. The difference compared to the mace is that it has bleed built into the weapon, which won't make any significant impact in this build because there's not a single thing that will boost bleed. It requires 12 points in strength and 8 in dexterity. As of course can be fused, all weapons needs to be, and uses Smith Stones to be upgraded. Ouch! Next is one of the big boys weapon for this build, the Battle Hammer. This is the second main weapon of this build.
Uncle Major, actually the Battle Hammer is a much better option because it also deals rot damage apart from the physical one, so there is no reason to use the Shut up!
Please, my dear nephew, don't be that person. Don't be that douche that makes people wanna punch them in the head. Goose fraba. I'm calmer now, I swear. The reason for the Battle Hammer instead of the rotten version is because the former fits the theme of this build, and it is not a bad weapon. It even was the weapon that I used to defeat Millennia. Ah yes, that guy also helped. Do you really wanna know the downsides of this weapon? The range. It has basically the same range as some other hammers instead of great hammers, and it's heavy. It requires 26 points in strength and 8 in dexterity. Can be fused, and I'm sorry nephews, you need smith stones to be upgraded. Please don't cry, please. Look at the flowers. Look at the flowers, nephews. Look at the flowers. The catch with this is that they need to be farmed, and the enemy that drops them is that Giga Chat Duelist in Leyndell capital. There are 2 of these guys near the Coliseum. One wields the Battle Hammer and the other one Duelist Great Axe. More on that soon. The one near the stair is the one that drops it. The drop rate is a bit garbage of only 4% of chance, but fret not. I got a video on how to improve your farm session that you can check here right now on the top right of the screen or in the video description. There I will talk about item discover, items that increase it, and where to grab everything you need to start any farm session. Now, I present you the dismounter as a heavy option for the gross method, so more damage, slower and more heavy. Because of the weight, they won't be usable until late game or even only new game plus. Really good weapon to power stance, although I think it works best when two-handed, but that cannot be done in this build. It requires 19 points in strength and 16 in dexterity. This is the highest dexterity requirement of this build. Can be fused with Flashes of War, uses smith stones to be upgraded, sorry. The dismounter also needs to be farmed, and the best place is at the beginning of the game in Lingrave. They are dropped from the Cadence Cell Swords. Go to the War Master Shack side of Grace and look west. There are 2 Cadence Cell Swords on the road. Kill them, check their corpses for loot, and return to the side of Grace and repeat until you have 2 of these. We are almost done, guys. Just to make sure you are still awake, here is a jump scare. The heavy option for axes will be the Crescent Moon Axe. These weigh a lot, so it's most likely it can only be used on New Game Plus. It needs 25 points in strength and 15 dexterity to be used. Game builds with Ashes of War and uses smith stones to be upgraded. They also need to be farmed, can be dropped by the exiled soldiers inside the Stormveil Castle. The best method I found was use the Lingrave Tower Bridge side of Grace as a starting point. Make sure to kill the Lion Guardian to make your life easier. Then look for these 2 units of exiled soldiers that are taller than the rest because they are the ones that carry the Crescent Moon Axe. Just rush in, focus on these 2, check their loot and go back to the side of Grace. Oops. Next, to replace the poor war pick, I present you the Lucerne as an option. Somehow it actually looks like a long war pick. Just to make it clear, you can only acquire 1 per new game cycle, unless you get someone to give you another one. This halberd requires 15 points in strength and 12 in dexterity to be wielded, and you know the rest can be infused and you need smith stones to be upgraded.
Oh man! Oh god! Oh man! Oh god! Oh man! Oh god! Oh man!
It is located in a battlefield that is a total sausage party. Near where the giants spawn, there are some cards that can be broken. And one of these is the Lucerne. This battlefield of sausages is located here in one of the lakes. And last, for the final main weapon, that is only for those characters that can become a Giga Chat, is the Duelist Great Axe. When your character finally stops being a noodle arm virgin and become a Giga Chat, you will get these monster colossal weapons. The requirement won't be a problem late game, which are 30 in strength and 10 in dexterity. The real problem is the weight, which is 20. So prepare your character with a nice thigh massage before equipping these weapons. You can be infused with Ashes of War, and finally, these require Somber Smith Stones to be upgraded. Just kidding, they also require Smith Stones.
Oh, come on!
Remember those duelists I just told about while talking about the Battle Hammer? Yeah, the one on the path up to the Coliseum is the one that has a 4% chance of dropping the Duelist Great Axe. So, as you might have noticed, this build is super, uber, duper, mega, uber, tera heavy on Smith Stones. And if you are already a seasoned Elden Ring player, you know that this game does not like when you have more than 1.5 item that uses smith stones to be upgraded. Yes, you heard me right, 1.5 item, because there are not enough smith stones throughout the game that you find as a loot on a ground to upgrade 2 weapons without farming enemies to drop it or finding the bell bearing that enables the purchase of these. Like, for real, what the fuck were they thinking to spread the loot of this game? The bell bearing... Oh wait, who the fuck is this? What is this shit?
I am assuming direct control of this video production to make YouTube friendly.
Oh look, it's totally Harbinger. Great.
This video is not following YouTube guidelines.
He shows up every time I start complaining about something.
Uncle Major, you will know demonetization.
Oh really? How so if my channel doesn't have the requirements to be yet?
Assuming direct control. Wait, really?
Yeah, bitch. And guess what happens if I press escape on the screen?
No, you son of a bitch, don't do that, don't ever. Fuck.
Where was I? Oh yeah, the fucking bell bearing smithstone's location in this game. They are a fucking joke. You know what? I plan to make 2 videos in the future, one about things I really like in Elden Ring, and the other one about things I really dislike. So, if you are interested to see my shitty opinions on those, make sure to subscribe to your favorite uncle. No bit intended. Anyway, smithstones 1 to 4 are not a problem because you can easily get the bell bearings that enables their respective purchase. I don't know if that sentence was grammatically correct. But anyway, smithstones minus bell bearing 1 is dropped by the boss at the end
Ralelucaria Crystal Tunnel
in Leonardo Lakes. Sorry, I cannot say Ralelucaria without saying the voice of a Kaji. Smithstone's Miner's Bell Bearing 2 is inside the chest really close to the beginning of the Seal Tunnel, here in Altus Plateau. The problem starts when you need to upgrade using Smithstones 5 and upward, so there are 2 things I would like to point out. The first one is that it is obviously hard and time consuming to upgrade all these weapons on new game. So if you don't wanna farm Smithstones, pick only the Gross Master as your main weapon and prioritize upgrade these first. If you have a spare in smithstones, then upgrade the remaining weapons. Do not forget that there are also secret seals on this build. At the end of new game, you will finally be able to buy all smithstones after acquiring the remaining smithstones minus bell bearing, and this will finally stop being a problem. Apart from the fact that Ancient Dragon smithstones is limited by 13 per playthrough. And the second thing that I would like to point out is that if you decided to farm the smithstones, I found some places to do so. To farm Smithstones 5, go to Altus Plateau Tunnel. 2 Stoneward keys are required to open. There, apart from the limited number of Smithstones 5 loots on the ground as loot, you can farm them from the miners. I tested it, and I can confirm that every single one of the miners can drop it. The problem is that they don't have a higher chance to doing so, which is only 10%. To farm Smithstone 6 as early as possible, try to farm in deep roots depths by killing the mausoleum soldiers that wanders around the area. Just make sure to not disable the Walk Mausoleum, because doing so will dispel all soldiers in the area permanently. And finally, Smithstone 7 and 8 can be farmed from the miners inside the Yellow Annex Tunnel? I think that sounds pronounced yellow. The chance of the Smithstone 7 is only 3.5% and 1% for Smithstone 8. So it's just better to get the bell bearers in Crumbling Farum Azula rather than farm these last 2 types. There are a lot of people that don't like farm stuff for too long in games. I am one of them. And there are people that love in doing so. So it is up to you, which choice do you prefer? Now we're going to talk about the options available to add elemental damage to your weapons. It was a bit hard for me to fit this chapter because the options to add fire and lightning are intertwined with some other chapters. There are 3 methods of doing so. One's connected to Incantations, another to Ashes of War affinities, and the third with consumable items. I'm going to start by talking about the one that is the most efficient, which is by using an incantation. First, you are going to choose an Ash of War of your liking and put it on your right hand weapon. This Ash of War should be the one that skills deals physical, lightning or fire damage, to keep the theme of this build. The affinity must be heavy, like my accent, so you can fuse the weapon with Electrify Armament Incantation. It must be Electrify Armament and not Blood Flame Blade Incantation for the following reasons. Electrify Armament damage buff is better than Blood Flame Blade. Blood Flame Blade, although has weaker fire damage compared to Electrify Armament's lightning damage, it has a buff that deals bleed damage, which is what makes this incantation interesting. I'm sorry to have to point out the obvious here, but this build does not have anything that boosts bleeding status effects build up. You cannot apply an incantation to your left hand weapon. And last, lightning affinity scale with dexterity, and this is a strength faith build. With those information in mind, to make the fire lightning combo work, you need to set the left hand with flame art affinity. That's the affinity that gives the most damage output for a strength faith build. What kind of Ash of War doesn't matter. You can put something that you never use, just so you can add the flame art affinity, or you can add one that gives you a support skill like quick step. And for your right hand, you're going to apply the Electrify Armament incantation. There are just two cons about this method. You need to apply the incantation all the time on your weapon, and only one weapon will have the elemental visual indication, which kinda sucks unfortunately, but you'll be able to deal in both types of damage anyway. I will talk about Electrify Armament and the rest of the incantations for this build, and also which sacred seal to use soon. A possible option for having both weapons with elemental visuals is applying grease into it, but keep in mind that this is the weakest method of them, so it works best in early game. And to do so, you need to have both type of greases right in your pocket slot or quick slot, obviously. And first two-handle the left weapon and apply the first type of grease. Then switch to power stance and apply the second type, which will be done on the right hand. In this case, doesn't matter which hands receive which element, as long as the weapon has affinity that allows buff, like heavy, keen, quality. Cons for this method are, like I said before, the damage, and you need to be constantly farming for the ingredients to use these greases. Fire Grease requires the Armorer's Cookbook No. 1, that is located inside of a Cadence Sellsword camp in Lingrave. For the Lightning Grease, you need the Ancient Dragon Apostle Cookbook No. 1, which is inside the Windhand Catacombs in Altus Plateau. Near the end of this dungeon, there is a trap floor that raises towards some spikes on the ceiling. You need to make it go up so you can reach underneath this floor, which will take you to an area where the corpus with the Ancient Dragon Apostle Cookbook 1 is. It is guarded by not one, but two
Giga Jet Crabs.
And there is a third method that is connected directly to Ashes of War. The idea here is to use some Ashes of War early in game to add fire and lightning damage to weapons as early as possible. To do so, we are going to need some that have one of these elemental affinities as default. But later you can also use any Ash of War where the skills deals physical fire or lightning damage, because all you have to do is set the weapon's affinity to flame art or heavy, and you are good to go. I will point out 4 Ashes of War that can be used as soon as possible. First, the ones that gives fire damage to your weapons. And of course one of them is Flame of GG well played. Flame of the Red Mains. It is dropped by Invisible Scarab north to the Gale Ford in Caelid, also known as Ohio. Activate the Fort Gale north side of Grace, and you don't even need to look for the Scarab because it will pass close by. Just keep an eye out for it, and...
Here I come.
boink it. The second Fire Ash of War is Flaming Strike. It is located outside the Red Main Castle, which is also located in Ohio. You need to go around the castle through the cliff sides to get to a small area with some bats and a harp. The scarab that drops this Ash of War is a mongoose then. And for the Lightning Ashes of War, you need to reach Altus Plateau. If you're new to the game and don't know how to gain access to the Altus Plateau, I made a video showing how to access most areas of the game as soon as possible. You can check on the info card on the top right or in the description of this video. The first Lightning Ash of War will be Lightning Slash. It is dropped by a scarab located inside of a camp, which is located here on the map. And the second Ash of War will be Lightning Ran, which is also dropped by a scarab, located southwest of Center Hero's Grave, also in Altus Plateau. It is actually close to the Lightning Slash, so you can pick both of them in one go. With at least one of those two types of Ashes of War, you can have your weapons dealing fire and lightning damage attacks from the beginning of the game. Now let's check some of the incantations for this build. There are 3 main incantations. 1 to apply lightning element to the weapon, and 2 to increase the damage output and some other buffs. Let's start with the expected ones, which are Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength. Golden Vow is an incantation that requires 25 points in faith to be casted. It boosts the caster and allies nearby during cast by 15% in damage output for all sources and damage negation by 10%. It lasts 80 seconds. It is located in Mount Gelmir inside a corpse stench shack here on the map. Be aware that an NPC invades you when you get near the place. And if you know this game, you know what complements well with Golden Vow, especially in this build that has fire damage. It is, of course, Flame Grant Me Strength. This incantation requires 15 points in faith to be used. It increases all physical damage and fire damage by 20% each. Boosts stamina recovery speed by 11% and lasts for 30 seconds. It is located behind Fort Gale in Caelid, aka Ohio. So when you go after flaming of the red mains, take the opportunity that you are in the area and grab this incantation. And now for the incantation that adds lighting stats to your weapon is Electrify Armament. This incantation requires 15 points in faith to apply the buff. The amount that increases the attack is 0.75 times the faith incantation scaling of the Sacred Seal used. The buff will last for 90 seconds. And Gravestone Sacred Seal boosts this incantation by 15%. It is purchasable by giving the Dragon Code prayer book to either Brother Corhin or the Pope Dog. I recommend it later because he cannot die and he doesn't move from inside the church, which by the looks of it was built around him. Oh my god, he's a prisoner! Well, not my problem anyway. And to get the Dragon Code prayer book, you need to kill a lonely Leyndell Knight that wanders south of the Artist Shack, here in Leon of the Lakes. And Blood Flame Blade. Don't use Blood Flame. I already explained on Elemental Buffs chapter of this video, why not? Now for the rest of the incantations, I'll leave them up to you. One of the reasons is because there's a lot of them, as you can see it. Some of them are very situational, others work throughout almost all parts of the game. And there is also the catch that I'm more like a melee player than a caster, so I didn't use much as I want to. If you watch my boss's video on this build, you will notice that I barely use incantations or the ones that buffs the character. And also, as I'm typing the lines of the script, the shadow of the Earth Tree trailer has been shown. And by the looks of it, it seems there is a lot of more fire stuff. So unfortunately, but understandably, I will leave up to you to choose what to use. But there are two incantations that I highly recommend that are very useful. The first one, to give you some range attacks, is Lightning Spear. Requires 17 points in faith to be casted, and I didn't find an internet formula for this one, sorry. It is purchasable after giving the Ancient Dragon Prayer Book to Brother Curran or the Pope Dog. And the second one is Catch Flame. This one is used up close. Really good at dealing with enemies weak to fire, like Earth Tree avatars. It requires 8 points in faith, so it can be used super early in game. The fire damage is 1.67 times the incantation scaling of the Sacred Seal. It is a starter item for the Prophet class, or it can be purchased from Brother Corhin in the Raw Table Hold for 600 runes. And now that we saw some of the incantations that can be used in this build, it is time to see which Sacred Seal you should be using. The one I will call the man of this build is the Earth Tree Seal. The problem with this Sacred Seal is that it requires 40 points in faith to be used. So yeah, it will not take a while, and we will only start to outclass other Sacred Seals incantation scaling at a really high level, somewhere around 7 points in faith. So we'll be switching for this one way ahead on this build. I think it is the only item in this list that uses Somber Stones to be upgraded. The Earth Tree Seal is located in the Volcano Manor. Look for the area where there is a woman killing looking at what is possible the corpse of his victim burning. What the fuck? It is inside a dark lit room on a corpse. For all your lighting casting needs, there is the Gravestone Seal. As soon as you get this one, it will be one you'll probably use the most, like I did. It requires 18 points in faith to be used. It boosts Dragon Code incantations. Unfortunately, it can only be acquired in mid-game stage, and it requires stones to be upgraded. To acquire, you need to reach Leyndell Royal Capital. Between West Capital Rampage Side of Grace and the Fortified Manor, there are 2 Leyndell Knights on the ground level. The one that wields a shield and a spear is the one that drops the Sacred Seal. The archer is just there to make your life miserable. And the Giant Seal is used to boost some fire incantations. Require 14 points in faith, and for some reason unknown to mankind, it also needs 4 points in strength. It boosts Fire Giant and Fire Monk incantations by 20%, and these are the incantations it boosts, which are a lot by the way. This one also needs Smith Stones to be upgraded, unfortunately. The Giant Seal is located even further ahead into the game, inside the Giant Conqueror Hero's grave in mountaintops of the Giant. What a mouth. And while you don't have any of the Sacred Seal, you can keep using the starting Finger Seal. This is a really good seal in early stages of the game. The problem comes with the fact that it also uses Smith Stones to be upgraded. But because you can easily get Smith Stones up to 4, you will be able to upgrade it at least up to plus 12. When it comes to the Talismans, we need to divide them in 2 possible combinations, because there are a big difference between some weapons. For example, the Gross Mass attacks are super fast, but the Battle Hammers not so much. But they all have something in common, fire and lightning damage. There are talismans that boost those damage. First one is the Fire Scorpion Charm. This talisman boosts any source of fire damage by 12%, but it also has a debuff that increases physical damage taken by 10%. To loot it, you need to go to the Mount Gelmir, more specifically to the Fort Leith. I think that's how pronounced Leith or Leith. Get in, dodge or kill the Fire Prelate and reach the roof. You can hear someone talking shit up there. Look for this broken part of the battlements to the west and jump over to this wooden platform to find the Fire Scorpion Charm. To boost lightning damage, you will need the Lightning Scorpion Charm. This talisman boosts lightning damage by 12% and it also has the same debuff as the Fire Scorpion of increasing physical damage taken by 10%. Using both talismans together increases damage taken by 21%, so that's a bit dangerous. But trust your uncle here, it's worth it. The Lightning Scorpion Charm is located behind a locked room in Windhunter Catacombs in Altus Plateau. One storeword key is required to open the room. Now, because the Gross Massa is the main weapon of this build, and its attacks are super fast, it is just natural to use talismans that boost consecutive hits. First one, the easiest to get, is the Winged Sword Insignia. This talisman boosts all sorts of damage if you gain the boost for landing consecutive hits. For every 2 hits landed, you gain a tier of boost damage. Those tiers are 3, 5 and 10% respectively. They start to decay after 1.5 seconds without landing any attack. This talisman in particular is awarded after defeating the boss at the end of Stillwater Cave in Leon of the Lakes. The other 2 talismans are Millicent's Prosthesis and Rotted Winged Sword Insignia. Both of them are connected to Millicent's questline. I made a complete guide on her questline that you can check on the info card on the top right or in the video description. If you don't know how to get these talismans, you will need to watch that video because her quest is long, like really long, probably the longest in the game. There I explain how to get Millicent's Prosthesis and Rotted Winged Sword Insignia, and to make it shorter here, if you are in a new game, you are going to get the Millicent's Prosthesis first. The reason is because it's easier to get and stacks with both Winged Sword Insignia and Rotted Winged Sword Insignia. So, as soon as she moves to the Windmill Village, smoke her to get the Millicent's Prosthesis. That does the same thing as the Winged Sword Insignia, but the damage boosts are 4%, 6 and 11. And the tiers start to decay after 1.5 seconds without any attack landed. It also increases dexterity by 5. You are only going after the Rotted Winged Sword Insignia on New Game Plus, because this one cannot be equipped together with the Winged Sword Insignia. Again, Rotted Winged Sword Insignia does the same thing as the other 2, but the damage boosts are 6, 8 and 13%. Same rule as for the decaying tiers, 1.5 seconds. And let's take the chance and talk about Flock's Canvas Talisman, which is a talisman connected to Millicent questline that boosts Incantation by miserable 8%. In that video I also explain how to get those. Just make sure to first get Millicent's Prosthesis before going after this one. I may sound a bit lazy saying just watch the video, but if you don't know Millicent's questline, you have no idea how massive long it is. And this is the 3rd time out of 4 that the build videos I made use these talismans. And the next one will also use them. Anyway, the weaker version of this talisman is the Faithful Canvas Talisman. The incantation boost is even more pathetic on this one, only 4%. It is located close to the Flock's Canvas Talisman inside the Celia Crystal Tunnel in Ohio. I mean, you know what I meant. Near the end of the cave there will be 2 giant bugs that do some squishing that are guarding a chest that contains the Faithful Canvas Talisman. Now, when using weapons that are not so fast like the Battle Hammer's Mounter, there really isn't a specific talisman that will greatly increase the damage output for this weapon. So look for some talismans that will boost other areas of your character. I recommend to support ones like Green Dog Talisman, Claw Talisman, so for those occasions I will leave up to you for something more of your liking. I'm going to take the opportunity now and talk about the tiers to use in the Flask's Wondrous Physick, because this basically complements some of the Talisman's boosts. Let's start with the ones that boost the elemental damage. Starting with the Flaming Shrouded Cracked tier, which is the one that boosts all fire damage by 20%. To get it, you need to kill the Putri avatar at the minor earth tree in Ohio. And for lightning boost, we need the Lightning Shroud Cracked tier. The increase in damage is also 20%. A Earth Tree avatar located near the lakes awards you this tier after defeating it, here on the map. And if you want, you can replace one of these with the Thorny Cracked tier. This tier does the same thing as Millicent's Prosthesis and Winged Sword Signet Talismans, boost consecutive attacks. The bonuses that come for this are 9, 13 and 20%, which are really good. Also the case after 1.5 seconds without landing any hit. This combined with Millicent's Prosthesis and Rotten Sword Signet can get you up to 50% in damage bonus. This one is also dropped by a Putri avatar that is located in the consecrated snowfield. Overall, I recommend sticking with the fire and lightning tiers. During my tests, the results were inconclusive. Sometimes using one of the elemental tier with Thorny Crack tier results in more damage, and other times less. Because you are always going to be dealing both types of this damage, it's better to keep the elemental tiers equipped. Now for Spirit Ashes or Summon Spirits, there are 3 options, and I'm going to be honest here, I just used the Summon Spirits only twice. One to throw a shitty boss, that I don't even remember which one was, and the other one was to assist me against Melania, because that bitch beats me every time to the ground. First is the Warhawk Ashes, which summons one of those super annoying parrots found in Stormveil Castle. They are not great, but do the job and aggro the enemies. To acquire first, you need to get the Prophecy's painting in Stormveil Castle. It is inside of a small room on a large open area where there are a bunch of enemies of flamethrowers and spike and stuff. Once the painting is acquired, we can go to the Church of Pilgrimage in the Whipping Peninsula and check north, close to the edge to see where the painting left the reward. I wish I could also attack the summons in this game just to discharge the hate I have for these fucking parrots. Second option is the Fire Monk Ashes. I did not playtest much with this guy, but he seems fine. I mean, he seems to not have much love for his own life, but still, he's taking aggro away. And that's what I like about my summons, being punching bags. It can only be acquired late in game. His ashes are located inside the giant mountaintop's catacombs. When you go down the first lift, send it back and wait for it to stop. You will see that you can go to the lift and send it further into the catacombs. Do that and reach the end of this cancerous area to find the ashes inside a chest. And the third and final option is no other than the Ancient Dragon Knight Giga Chad Christopher. I thought his name would never end. This Giga Chad here helped me defeat Melania in this build. He's much better than the others, mainly because he has a shield, so he can defend himself better than the others. He's basically one of those Lendil Knights that have a spear and a shield that deals lightning attacks, and that's what he is specialized. His Ashes of War is awarded after defeating the boss at the end of the Saint's Hero's Grave here in Altus Plateau, and I think a fly just got inside my mouth, really. Nephews and nephettes, we are finally have reached the best part of this video, where we are going to check what armor we are using, even though the ones shown in this video makes no difference, like 90.6% of the armor pieces in this game. It's Fashion Rig! Man, I don't know why this bitch shows up every time. Actually, I know why, because 85% of the plays of this game have zero creativity in their builds. The other 10% are bootlegs guts cosplay, and the remaining 5% are you nephews. The best of the best. The red station wagons of the cars, you get the idea. But man, look at this bitch. Come on, it looks like a night woman, if you know what I mean. I'm not answer that. Anyway, in this video I decided not to show where to get all the armor because there are a lot of them, and also because this build is not a cosplay thing. I hope you understand that, dear nephew. Stop calling Jybug. Leave it on the voicemail or something. Jesus. I'm going to start showing the light set for the beginning of this build. This uses the Blackguard's Iron Mask for the headpiece and the Vulgar Militia set for the rest of the body. This keeps a really good worn out look that I've chosen for this build. Hand select set pieces can be switched to Scale, Gauntlet and Grips. When you decide to increase the poise towards 51, there is a nice combo for it and the one I consider the main set for this build. Here we have the Mask of Confidence for headgear with Ronin's armor for chest piece, Scale Gauntlets for hands and Veteran's Grips for legs. There are a lot of possible combinations for this theme. You can mismatch between these sets I've just shown, use parts of the Range Rover set, Blythe set. With the experimentation you'll find something that suits you as well. Now let's see the most efficient options for starting classes. And I say efficient because you can start with any class and you'll eventually be able to play any build. Like I always say, starting classes bring optimization for a build. Think like as a loadout. And for this build, the main attributes are Strength and Faith.
The Giga Chad combo.
Second attributes are Vigor, Mind and Endurance. There are two obvious options for this build, Confessor and the Prophet classes. Confessor has 12 points in Strength and 14 in Faith, for a total of 26 in the main category, and 10 in points in Vigor, 13 in Mind and 10 in Endurance for a total in 33 in the secondary category. Total points are 59. Wow! And how goes the Prophet class? It has 11 points in Strength and 16 in Faith, for a total of 27 in the main category. In the second category it has 10 in Vigor, 14 in Mind and 8 in Endurance for a total score of 32. It has a total of 59. Because they have the same score, you should pick the Edgelord class instead of the Samurai.
Huh?
I'm just kidding. Both Confessor and Prophets are good optimized options for this build, but slightly advances for the Prophet for having Catch Flame as a starting item, which is one of the incantations I recommend you to use. And finally, for the last chapter, we are going to talk about attribute points, which for me is the most boring part because it's hard to make it interesting to watch. I bet it's also uninteresting for you too, nephews. Because of that, let's shake things up a bit with a jump scare. I don't think there is much of a secret here. The main attributes are Strength and Faith, and Vigor, Endurance and Mind are the secondary ones. I don't keep track exactly which points I apply when we reach the rune levels. I usually apply the attributes I think I need the most for the moment. So here's an example of what you could do. First, choose the weapons you are going to use at the beginning of the game and reach the requirements to use them. Then start leveling up Vigor up to level 40. We'll also add in some points once in a while in Faith to reach 15 points so that Flaming Greater Strength and Electrify Armament can be used. After that, it's better going for Strength and aiming for 40 points, but also trying to add some points in Faith to reach 25 and be able to use a Golden Vow. Also remember to add some points in Mind and Endurance. If you want to have enough mana to cast Electrify Armament, Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength, you should reach level 17 in Mind. For Endurance you need to equip all the items you'll be using and check the character info screen and look for the value on your equip load. Then close that shitty TikTok Instagram already bullshit on your phone and open the calculator and divide the equip load of your character by 0.7. The result means that when leveling up Endurance, the max equip load number should be higher than it, so you don't fat roll. After that, go for 16 Vigor, which is likely to be the highest you should go because after reaching 60, the increase in HP is really poor. So switch to Strength again, aiming for 60 or 80, and then also 60 and 80 for Faith. At this point, if you reach these values, you're most likely to be already in New Game Plus 2. And I think with that in mind, we have concluded this video, because it's super fucking long already. I really didn't expect it to be so long. I'll try to make it shorter next time, but also I face a dilemma every time. Should I make it shorter so the length doesn't scare people away for watching it? Or should I add every possible information to not let anyone be lost in the video, you know? It is a video for experienced players versus video for new players. And you can help me with that. I made some posts some months ago asking some questions about the game that you can check on the description of this video. They are really quick to answer. So if you didn't have time to answer those, that will help me to have an idea on what should I focus. And you can also help me by leaving a like in this video and subscribe to your new favorite uncle.
No pun intended.
And commenting hashtag SmithstoneSucks to let me know you reached this far in the video. The videos featured on this channel are made by me alone. I put a lot of time and effort into them. And different to what this platform wants, I do not flood my channel with a new video every single day. That will be all, Sorosh. I hope you liked this video or at least was enjoyed to watch the video. You can check these other build videos I made so far. And I hope to see you on my next video. Take care, nephews.